Hi folks, welcome. And today I want to talk just a wee bit about anxiety and more clients that I'm working with and just generally people that I'm talking to are suffering from rising levels of anxiety. Now, some with a diagnosed general anxiety disorder where they're anxious all the time and not linked to a specific event, and others with anxiety over specific issues. Sometimes that can be like a single specific issue, like exams or career or family or bereavement, worry about illness, things like that. And depending on the severity, I suppose what I want to say from the outset is please seek help, especially if your anxiety is persistent, intrusive, it feels excessive to you and it disrupts your life. There are loads of therapies out there that can help. So please do seek help. What I'm talking about here is just that wee bit of extra self-help that you can do for whatever level of anxiety that you are suffering with. And let's talk, I suppose, just in more general terms about what anxiety is. When you're in a state of anxiety, your body is in fight or flight mode, okay? So, it's a state of fearfulness. Your body is ramped up for survival. Your sympathetic nervous system is switched on, and really that's your stress hormones. They're getting released and a whole chain reaction occurs in your body. Your blood pressure is higher, your heart rate is higher, and your breathing is faster and shallower. You might have a bit of a dry mouth, feel shaky and feel tense, real tightness and tension in your body. These are all necessary if you do have to fight or flee from danger, but they're really only supposed to be there in the short term, okay, not in the long term. And so what I want to talk about today is some of the things that you can do to try to kind of switch yourself out of that mode physically in your body, and switch your body into what's called like a parasympathetic state, the opposite of what I was just talking about. So here are a few wee tips. And if you can't stay with me for the 5 or 6 minutes, you can flick to the end and get a quick summary. But I want to go into a wee bit of detail on each of them. I just don't like telling people what to do without explaining why. So, tip number 1 has nothing to do with nutrition, but one that for my stressed or anxious clients, they find enormous success with. Okay, and that is breathing. So yes, we're breathing all day, every day, but having a deliberate and frequent practice of slowing down, of controlling, of lengthening the breath, really helps you to relieve those feelings of anxiety. Now, box breathing is one of my personal favourites, okay? And so pop me a wee note, rather than demonstrate it now, if you pop me a wee note in the comments, I can send you a 1-page infogram on box breathing and some of the other breathing exercises that I have. I practice this a few times a day, okay? And on days whenever I'm feeling anxious about something, I can practice that up to 10 times a day. It only takes a few minutes at a time, so it takes nothing out of your day. You can just kind of stop in your tracks, do it. Sometimes I'll do it whenever I'm sitting in traffic lights, just to keep me calm for things, okay? And when you take time to breathe, the signals that's sending your body, you're breathing long and deep, and your body gets the signal that you're safe. After all, if you had to fight or flee from danger, you wouldn't be taking time to slow down and do a bit of breathing. So that's a kind of like an automatic flick switch. And meditation is the same, but for somebody that's suffering from anxiety, meditation might sound like as if it takes a bit more effort. So I always start with breathing and with breath work, because it really takes less effort. You hardly have to think about it. Okay, so that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, and this is more nutritional. So for tip number 2, it's removing stimulants from your diet. And removing stimulants from your diet is the single biggest win-win that you can have in terms of supporting your anxiety. Let's talk a wee bit about caffeine, one of the biggest and most common stimulants that we have in our daily diet. Too much caffeine can lead to increased anxiety or can complicate an existing anxiety disorder by increasing the symptoms. Caffeine is a stimulant, okay? Just because we're, so used to it doesn't mean that it's not a stimulant. It is a stimulant. And that can be bad news for someone with anxiety. Because caffeine's kind of, jittery effects on the body are similar to the fight or flight, that frightening event. And that's because caffeine stimulates fight or flight response. And studies show that this can make anxiety worse and can sometimes even trigger an anxiety attack. So sorry folks, if you are suffering from anxiety at whatever level, that's coffee, tea, even green tea, because it is highly caffeinated, Coke, alcohol, things like that, you're really looking to severely reduce and try to remove actually completely. When you're in a state of anxiety, you're much more sensitive to these types of drinks and foods. Now, if you're a big consumer, say for example of Coca-Cola or caffeine, something that's very highly caffeinated, then don't try to go off them all at once. Just start to reduce rather than removing all at once. So tip number 3, third tip, is to work on balancing your blood sugar levels. Now you might say balancing your blood sugar, surely that's to do with diabetes or things like that, controlling your insulin levels, and yes it is, and I specialise in helping people with balancing blood sugar levels, but it's very much about supporting you whenever you're feeling anxious as well. Because sugar and refined carbohydrates cause blood sugar levels to spike and then to drop dramatically. And when your blood sugar drops, your body tries to bring it up, okay? And it does this by pumping out adrenaline, which is a fight or flight hormone, and among other things, that tells your liver to make more glucose, blood sugar. Adrenaline also makes your heart race and your palms sweaty. At the very least, you'll feel cranky, and at the worst, it brings on feelings of anxiety. So if you're already susceptible to anxiousness, then you can see where I'm going with this. Now, if your blood sugars stay low, your body puts out more hormones, one called cortisol, which you'll no doubt be aware of, and it's also known as the stress hormone, partially because it helps to control things like mood and fear. But you put adrenaline and cortisol together and you've got a recipe for anxiety. Okay, so avoiding that dip starts with avoiding the spike. Okay, so how can you avoid that spike? Removing sugar and refined carbohydrates, easier said than done, I know, but if you can give it a try, you will be amazed at the results. So removing sugar and refined carbohydrates, and instead aim for complex carbohydrates like your vegetables, like your fruits, so carbohydrates that have that bit of fibre attached to them as well, and whole grains. Having protein at every meal and being aware of where your protein sources are coming from. Protein slows down the release of the sugar from the carbohydrates, so you're not getting as big a spike. Okay, so it's kind of going a bit more like that. And then the third part of balancing your blood sugars is to eat regular meals, and so avoid long gaps between eating, because long gaps between eating, if your blood sugars are not in a good state of balance, can cause this roller coaster effect. Okay? Tip number 4 is to prioritize sleep. Now, anxiety is frequently connected to sleeping problems. Excess worry and fear can kind of make it harder to fall asleep. We've all had those nights, and to stay asleep through the night. And then sleep deprivation can worsen anxiety, which spurs this negative cycle, which can involve levels of insomnia and anxiety disorders. And then what happens is you're worrying about your lack of sleep, because you've heard that it can cause anxiety, so you're worrying more about the lack of sleep. That causes even more anxiety. But you'll be surprised at the difference that these previous steps can make on your sleep. For example, reducing or removing caffeine. Because caffeine has a 6-hour half-life, which basically means that it takes a full 24 hours to get it out of your system completely. anything you drink afternoon, about half of that, it'll be at half strength at bedtime. So that makes it harder for you to fall asleep, but it also disrupts the quality of your sleep. You're not getting that deep sleep. And you end up waking up the next day with a bit of an emotional handicap, really. It's kind of, waking up, heading into to face the day with your hand tied behind your back. So, that's the effect the caffeine has. Blood sugar balancing also helps sleep, and I have had countless clients that can attest to that. Whenever they're working on their blood sugars, they're sleeping better, just automatically, sometimes without doing anything else. But a few other sleep tips are no screen time for 1 to 2 hours before bed. An hour on the iPad before bed can reduce the release of melatonin, which is your sleep hormone, by 50%. Another tip, if we go back to the breathing exercise, and this is one that I regularly do. I use that to help me fall asleep if I'm, kind of like if the mind's racing a wee bit whenever I'm trying to get to sleep, or particularly to get back to sleep if I'm waking up in the middle of the night. So all of those things will help with the sleep. And sometimes just you prioritising it, making your sleep important for you, is enough to really get you going, and make you feel a wee bit better and a bit less anxious about it. Tip number 5 then is activity. Now this is very personal and individual. According to some studies, regular exercise works as well as medication for some people to reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression, and those effects can be long lasting. However, there are other studies that show that intense exercise can exacerbate the physical symptoms of anxiety. They cause a drop, it can cause a drop in blood sugars, fluctuations in your heart rate and your blood pressure. So it's very individual to each person. I recommend, if you're not doing anything at all at the minute, start small with a short walk, twice a day if possible. Outside always helps, and experimenting with different activities. In a group session last night that I had with one of my weight loss groups, we were sharing different links to different types of exercise that we found that really helped. One of them was Karen's Tai Chi. There was yoga with Dennis, or yoga with William, or the Northwest Yoga Centre with Evelyn Donnelly. All fantastic, and for fun and exercise, so you're getting the two together. You could try out cardio dance with Blina Hogan. These are all available online. I'll put some links to those in the comments, so watch out for that. And then just finally, it's kind of like a 6th tip, but I'm going to mention it very briefly. Might look at this in another video later on. Is consider adding in some nutrients in the form of supplements, just to support you whilst these, if you're having kind of a more extended period of anxiety. B vitamins are very important, B5 in particular. Magnesium is very important, and another one like L-theanine, very important as well. And then last but not least, do just a wee reminder to get help. There's a variety of sources I can certainly help in terms of nutrition and lifestyle changes to help you support anxiety, and minimise the symptoms. But there's loads of help, loads of talking therapies. Go and have a chat with the GP, and you don't have to kind of either suffer it alone or fix it, and you don't have to deal with it alone. So I promised a wee quick summary for anybody that couldn't stay with me the whole way through. So here goes. Tip number 1: a regular daily breathing exercise. Put something in the comments below if you want me to send you out my breathing exercise sheets. Tip number 2: ditch the caffeine and anything else that has like coffee, teas, things like that. Either remove or reduce significantly. Tip number 3: get your blood sugars balanced. Tip number 4: prioritize your sleep. And tip number 5: experiment with exercise. Now, if you want some more information, if you do want some help with me, if you think that I might be able to help, you can just book a 10-15 minute kind of like a pre-consultation. Let's see where we can go from here. Completely free chat. Just go on to either send me a message through Facebook, through Instagram, or the contact me page on my website, janicetracynutrition.com. because all of these areas, all of these tips that I've taken you through, I have worked through successfully with clients. So that's me for today. I hope you found that useful, and pop anything else that you need to know, any links that you want, and I'll pop links in the comments as well. Have a great day. Bye.